Hello everybody, I would like to continue my little series on the Gurdjieff work, and today I'm going to discuss evolution. And I thought of doing this because I saw I was doing the tasks and discussing a lot about world maintenance and such like. And an important part of all this is obviously the evolution of the whole universe and how it's moving along, the evolution of our planet and all the other planets, and the evolution of ourselves. We are the ones that are trying to evolve to become, the next stage in our humanity, maybe, or the next stage in what our individual being can be as it works with the divine. It's something that's on my mind a lot about what's going to happen to the future of humanity. Where is humanity going? What is the evolution of humanity? I actually tackle this in one of my books, Monkey Mind, Robot Body, which is a fiction book, but I did research it all about how artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and such like is coming. Is that the future? Is this the future that Gurdjieff was warning us about? I know he says don't be automatons and don't be robots, in our own way of being. We want to try and wake up and be somebody. But if we are awake, enlightened people, do we need these robotic cyborg bodies that we're being offered? Anyway, just a little something that I think about quite a lot. Anyway, with evolution, I'm going to start with an In Search of the Miraculous quote, which is from page 158. So this is Ouspensky writing. The only possible permanent idea of good and evil for man is connected with idea of evolution, not with mechanical evolution, of course, but with the idea of man's development through conscious efforts, the change of his being, the creation of unity in him, and the formation of a permanent I. And that's what I've been trying to put across to everybody in these last few shows. That is it in a sentence, really. This is what we're supposed to be doing and working upon ourselves. So it's on page 158. I'm going to say it again. The only possible permanent idea of good and evil for man is connected with idea of evolution, not with mechanical evolution, of course, but with the idea of man's development through conscious efforts, the change of his being, the creation of unity in him, and the formation of a permanent I. That's what we want to do. That's what we're aiming at. So continuing with In Search of the Miraculous, next page. Individuality, a single and permanent I, consciousness, will, the ability to do, a state of inner freedom can belong only to people of a higher degree of development. So we're trying to evolve ourselves so we can get to that stage, and then we give back. There's the involution and the evolution, which is what I've got some quotes about that in a moment, so they explain it much better than I ever could. One's coming from the divine to us that are open to it. We've got to be open, and to be open to it, we need to work on ourselves and develop that higher version of ourselves and our higher being so that they can assimilate it and then send it down to us. Then we work every day on ourselves and be a real person, and then we're sending back to the divine. And most people obviously not sending back the right energies, which is why we're working on ourselves so that we can be attuned, so we can send back the right energies. But we shall go into that during this. So I'm going to start with life is real only then when I am. The possibility is also foreseen for beings to acquire the kernel of their essence, their own I, even after entering responsible age. The possibility is given to us after our completed formation into responsible life, by our own intentions through certain inner experiencings and certain outer conditions to crystallize in our common presence data for the obtaining of such a kernel, of course with greater difficulty than in preparatory age. I've struggled with that word, preparatory age. So we're working on ourselves throughout our lives, and some of us come to this work early in our lives. Some of it comes to it in our later stages of life, but it's never too late. Might not have enough time, maybe need to work harder if we're of the older generations. When we're younger, I'm not saying we need to take our time about it, but we've got our lives ahead of us to work on ourselves every day. Not meaning you can leave it till tomorrow, of course, because tomorrow is the disease of tomorrow. We need to be getting on and doing it and living in the now, working in the now. So also from Life is Real, only then when I am. To cross from one stream to the other, it is indispensable. So Gurdjieff talks about the two streams. And we're crossing over here. To cross from one stream to the other, it is indispensable with a constantly active consciousness, first of all of extremely great intensity, to obtain the intentional crystallization in oneself of the data for engendering in one's common presence an unquenchable impulse of desire for such a crossing. And then will follow a long inner struggle requiring great tension of all the inner forces, with obvious abnormalities crystallized in one's individuality. So you're taking on this work, you've come from the stream of just the Joe Bloggs, living your everyday life, thinking you're awake and you're not. You suddenly realize you're asleep and you want to wake up, so you cross the stream to try and get into the one that's full of all the wisdom and the knowledge and the know-how of how to do this. You've crossed over and then you've got to work on yourself. It's not an instantaneous result. Suddenly you're enlightened. It doesn't work like that. We've got to work on ourselves day after day, minute after minute, second after second, the now, in the now, doing it now. And as he says here, it's an inner struggle continuously, because all our different eyes work at different degrees of what they want us to do and whether they want us to do it or not. Some are trying to egg you on. Yes, this is a good idea. And there's some others going, oh, it's much easier to go home and put the TV on and watch some movie that's got absolutely no relevance to your life whatsoever and has no great fundamental teaching for you. It's just something to distract you from all your needs and wishes and wants. So this is from All and Everything, page 85 to 6. Owing to all the aforesaid, there first arose on the planet Earth also, as there should, what are called similitudes of the whole, whereas they are also called microcosmoses. And further, there were formed from these microcosmoses what are called Erdosthenian and polar medetic vegetations. So one of them is a bit of a smelly thing, something to do with saint, and the other one, polymedectic. I'm trying to remember what that is. It's gone from my head at the moment. Still further, as also usually occurs from the same microcosmoses, there also began to be groups of various forms of what are called teratocosmoses of all free brain systems. And among these latter, there then first arose just those biped teratocosmoses whom you called slugs. So teratocosmoses, free-brained, that's what we are, the free brain, moving brain, emotional brain, physical, intelligent brain. And some say that emotional brain is your solar plexus. I think I might do a show on solar plexus because that's quite important. And it's them centers, those are the centers we're trying to harmonize so we can start evolving and working on ourselves. So Gurdjieff's going to go on a bit now from All and Everything. I don't mean go on a bit. I mean, he goes on about all the different processes that he discusses in All and Everything of how all this works. So page 266. This wheat derives the moisture it needs for what is called evolving Jartkrom, only from dew. And I've done a whole show with Joshua Denny on Jartkrom, which you can find on my channel, because that's again another deep subject to have to go through, and I don't really want to do that here, but you can look that up and he'll explain it all to you. But it's one of the processes we need. All and Everything, page 622. The beings of other planets await the action of Sulionensius with impatience because, thanks to it, the need for evolving in the sense of the acquiring of objective reason by them increases in them by itself. Soli Unensius is to do with the sun. And I know a lot of people have been discussing the sun lately because some people in the work think this is what we're going through. And I'm trying to get someone to come on and do a show with me about this. But I'll just do a couple of quotes about Solionensius. So from All and Everything, page 622. All the free brain beings on whatever planet always await the manifestations of this law, Sulio Nensius, with impatience and with joy, because, thanks to it, the need for evolving in the sense of acquiring of objective reason by them increases in them by itself. So we need this Sulio Nensius because it helps us to evolve. The only difference is that your favourites, us on Earth, await these feasts with impatience because on these holy days it has become customary among them to allow themselves to be more jolly and to booze freely. The causes which bring forth the action of this cosmic law are for each planet different and always flow from and depend upon what is called the common cosmic harmonious movement. Moreover, frequently for your planet Earth, what is called the center of gravity of causes is the periodic tension of the sun of its system, thanks to the influence upon this sun of a neighboring solar system. And the sun is what we're evolving to have to work with. You know, there's lunar energies as well, but they are different, the way the moon works on us and how we affect the moon. And the sun is what we should be aiming towards. As Gurdjieff says, it's better to be eaten burnt by the sun than eaten raw by the moon. So the sun obviously gives us some kind of energy that works upon ourselves. Again, this is all looking through Gurdjieff's harmonious laws of how the cosmos works. And as I was saying in another show, I think it's the last one about knowledge, that if we have the knowledge and then start understanding how it all works, and we start to see how these processes work for us and why we want them to work for us and with us, and we want to work for them. So go and worship the sun, peoples. And continuing with Solionensius from All and Everything. In them, under the action of Solionensius, instead of the desire for a speedier self-perfection, as something began to arise, such as they themselves characterized by the words need of freedom, which chiefly serves the cause of the arising there of these same grievous processes, of theirs similar to this last Bolshevism. And it is a need for freedom. When we start to wake up, we suddenly realize we don't want to be part of the system. And I don't mean the cosmic system, I mean this planet's crazy lunatic asylum that we live in, you know, the rat race and the way that we're told by our peers to live in that system. We suddenly realize that system doesn't work, it's illogical. And that's why we've come to this, because we're looking for something to help us survive. And Gurdjieff used to say his work that he's teaching us is to help us survive this lunatic asylum, to make us aware of what's going on, use that knowledge, turn it into wisdom, and see with our own eyes the reality of it all. Whereas all those people that don't do this kind of thing are not, they're still as if they've got that Kunda buffer stuck to them, seeing everything topsy-turvy and living, you know, in a mad world. So we need to do this work on ourselves so that it can help us survive this planet, as well as develop ourselves so that we can get our soul to move on and get off this wheel when we do finally depart from this planet. So continuing with All and Everything. This is page 758. On these third order suns or planets, there began to arise similarities to the already arisen. And as after this, surrounding conditions were everywhere established, corresponding to the manifestation of the second particularity of the fifth stopinder of the fundamental sacred heptaparapashinok, which is the law of seven, heptaparapashinok, law of seven, something very important in the Gurdjieff work. Therefore, from then on, the actualization of the fundamental outer cycle of the sacred heptaparapashinok ceased, and all the action of its functioning entered forever into the results already manifested by it. and in them there began to proceed its inherent processes of transformation called evolution and involution. So we're working on ourselves with this law of 7, and there's these octaves in it and the stop-inders, which again need to be explained, but I've done them in other shows or in talks with Josh Denny. And also you can, a lot of people have talked about these online. You can find them, or I've done blogs on this kind of thing because it's quite a technical thing, but also can be explained by others much better than I can explain it. But if you're reading the books, you'll have a gist of what I'm talking about. So All and Everything, page 780. Those substances which go for the coating and perfecting of their own higher being bodies, which on the path of their returning evolutionary ascent from the last stop-inder of the fundamental sacred heptaparapashinok towards the most holy protocosmos, were transmitted with the aid of their own planet itself into definite, higher, corresponding subplanetary formations, and enter into them for further transformation as their first being food, which is their ordinary food and drink. Those second source substance obtained from the transformations of their own sun and of the outer planets of their own solar system, and which entered the atmosphere of their planet through the radiations of the latter, enter into them again, also for further evolutionary transformation as the second being food. Their air and these substances serve for the coating and maintenance of the existence of their second being bodies. And finally, the first source substance, which for them are a third kind of being food, serve both for the coating and for the perfecting of the higher being body itself. And we're trying to develop this higher being body. We've got the free foods, so it's the air we breathe is a food, the food and drink we eat and drink is a food, and also the impressions we receive from as we're out and about in the world, the impressions we receive from what we see other people doing, how we react to things. When we go and look at the sun or go and look at nature, them impressions, when we go and look at, the concrete jungles of our cities and our towns, how they affect us. All these are impressions that we can work with inside ourselves, these energies, and how we respond to them. And we're sending them energies back to the divine source. And the divine source wants good energies, wants us to understand what it is we're sending back. If you're sitting there annoyed or upset about something, then you're reveling in negative energies, and they're not really helping the divine source. It's suffering. We need to, I'm not saying be happy all the time, but we have to learn to understand what these negative energies are that we're going through. Why am I angry? Why am I upset? Get to the cause of it, and you transmute that energy into a finer energy, which is what the divine needs to, or his endlessness, as it is in Gurdjieff's writings, to help him with his work, his endlessness. It's normally called his endlessness, so we'll say it's with a masculine. I suppose Gurdjieff doesn't really make him out to be whether he's what the female is in it. I will perhaps get someone to talk to me about that for a show. I often wonder where the feminine side of all this is in Gurdjieff's work, though he talks about the Holy Spirit a lot, and I wonder if he means that to be the feminine. But that's a subject I still don't quite understand myself. Any clues, please send to me. So All and Everything, page 1004. The human organism has been brought by great nature to such perfection that each and every organ has been provided with a means of defense against every external contingency. So we've got it in us to do all this, and as in many traditions, they say it's all inside us, we just need to bring it out, but it's how we develop it, how we recognize it, that makes it do what it's supposed to be doing. Most people ignore who they are, what they're going through, get caught up very much in their emotions, identify with things, as Gurdjieff says, and we need to try not to identify, but we change it around so that we can use it in a way that helps us work on ourselves and look at ourselves, all this self-remembering, self-observation, all the tasks, help us to recognize what's going on within, and then also without, within and without. So views from the real world. I think this is in the introduction of it. The evolution of man cannot be approached through mass influences, but is the result of individual inner growth. Such an inner opening was the aim of all religions of all the ways, but requires a direct and precise knowledge of changes in the quality of each man's inner consciousness. This can only be acquired with an experienced guide through prolonged self-study and work on oneself. Through the order of his ideas and the exercises which he changed repeatedly, the minds of all who came to him were open to the most complete dissatisfaction with themselves, and at the same time to the vast scale of their inner possibilities in a way that none of them ever forgot. And that's true. I found that with this work, it really made me look at myself. A lot of dissatisfaction with myself, even though I knew all along there was something in me that wanted to do good, do the right thing, but I'd fall down all the time. I had to look at how my own negativity, and I still go through things like that now. None of us are perfect. We all slip and fall. But if we're aware of what's going on, maybe we can catch ourselves. So we're working on ourselves to send the energies back to the divine. So this is another Views from the Real World quote. It's quite a long one. There is the law of involution and evolution. Everything is in motion, both organic life and inorganic, either up or down. Evolution has its limits as well as involution. You start a do, talking about the octave do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. You start a do, a vibration which has a certain momentum in it. Up to me, the notes have an inner possibility of going on. But here, if there is no outside push, the octave goes back. And that's one of the things of all this, when I was talking about the stop-hinders earlier, we need to force ourselves forwards. We find things happen that will try and stop us doing this work, and help make us give it up or slow us down or try and distract us from it. If it gets this outside help, it can go on by itself for a long way. Man is also constructed in accordance with this law. Man serves as an apparatus for the development of this law. I eat, but nature has made me for a certain purpose. I must evolve. I do not eat for myself, but for some outside purpose, which is our work for the divine, hopefully. I eat because this thing cannot evolve by itself without my help. And that's kind of what his endlessness in Gurdjieff's books is saying. We're doing this for to help ease his suffering, his endlessness' suffering. And it helps us end our suffering as well, because we're becoming more attuned to everything. So humanity likes its suffering. Men and women like to suffer. Right. I eat because this thing cannot evolve by itself without my help. Dough contains both possibility and momentum. It can rise to Ray and me without help. Bread can evolve, but if not mixed with air, it cannot become far. This energy helps it to pass a difficult place. So we've got your do, re, mi, fa. The do, re, mi kind of gets to, and then there might be something to try and stop you doing it, and we need the fa to push us on. Our aim is to help the octave to completion. C is the highest point in ordinary animal life, and it is the matter from which a new body can be built. Involution proceeds from top to bottom, and evolution from bottom to top. So involution from top to bottom, coming from the divine. Evolution bottom to top, that's us sending it back up. Involution proceeds from top to bottom, evolution from bottom to top. The life of man plays the same role as planets in relation to Earth, Earth in relation to Moon, and all suns in relation to our sun. In accordance with the law, you can follow either the law of evolution or the law of involution. In our system, we are similar to God, threefold. If we consciously receive free matters and send them out, we can construct outside what we like. This is creation. So we're the microcosmos wanting to do good for the macrocosmos. I think I said before in another show, can't remember which one it was, about, if we're the cells inside the divine, the little cells going around the divine's body, being the microcosmos, in the macrocosmos, do we want to be the good bacteria or the bad bacteria? The good bacteria to help it grow strong and be healthy and be the best it can, or the bad bacteria that pollutes it and gives it the disease and tries to destroy it? I'd like to be the good bacteria, please. So this is from Knott. The distortion of the sayings of the great teachers is part of the downflowing of the law of the octave, which, though conscious in its origin, is mechanical when it reaches us, involution. Evolution in us is the result of conscious labour and voluntary suffering, of the struggle against this downflowing current. So the current's coming into us and we have to work on it. We're getting all this from the impressions we're seeing each and every day and every moment. And we're trying to change it and evolve it so that when it goes back, it's the good stuff. So continuing with Knott. Strength and understanding come little by patience and perseverance each day, a drop. It will take you years, centuries, lives perhaps. Could do, couldn't it? But then Gurdjieff also suggests in some writings, I'm trying to remember where, try to do it in this life. We don't know if we've got another life. We don't know if the next life, if we do come back to this, we'll be offered this again. Might miss all this teaching, might not be able to find, our ways back to the path. So we've got to try and do it in this life, if possible, or at least evolve ourselves enough so that in the next one, if we come back, we're a little bit more progressed and hopefully continue to find it quite easily and get on with the next stage in our development. So this is from In Search of the Miraculous. No mechanical evolution is possible. The evolution of man is the evolution of his consciousness, and consciousness cannot evolve unconsciously. The evolution of man is the evolution of his will, and will cannot evolve involuntary. The evolution of man is the evolution of his power of doing, and doing cannot be the result of things which just happen. We need to do it. We must want to do it. We must desire to do it, and then we do it and we work on it and make it happen. Okay. So In Search of the Miraculous, page 70. Everything in the world either develops or decays, evolves or degenerates, but nothing evolves mechanically. Only degeneration and destruction proceed mechanically. Help from outside is possible only so far as it is valued and accepted. Sometimes we don't want to be told what to do we? Or told how to do things. Many of us probably are rebels. I'm a little bit of a rebel. I didn't like being told what to do when I was younger. And sometimes I was told what to do just to keep the peace in the family or peace at school or whatever, when I could see that things were not quite right. I used to speak up when I could see that. I'd like to say now the words insanity. When I could see that somebody was doing something that was just insane, really. But they were doing it because maybe they didn't understand why they were doing it. Or we get told how to live our lives, how to, find that job, get that house, get married, have them kids, blah, 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 follow the rat race. And, why? Maybe not everybody wants to do that. So I used to rebel against that kind of thing. Rebel against, protest against how nature's treated or whatever. We all have our reasons to protest against things. Why was I saying that? Now I've forgotten. But some help is worthwhile, and sometimes we do have to listen to the real teachers. I don't know personally any real teachers, which is why I often say to people, just go and find the core teachings of everything. Go and read Gurdjieff's writings, go and read Ouspensky and see how it niggles at you. In Search of the Miraculous, page 306, a little warning. Evolution is never guaranteed. It is possible only, and it can stop at any moment and in any place. But I'm sure when it stops, that's because we've given up. If we've got that need inside us, we can do it. In Search of the Miraculous, page 308 and 309. An involutionary process begins consciously in the absolute, so it's coming down from above to us. But at the next step, it already becomes mechanical, because as it leaves the absolute, which is where his endlessness lives, the divine heavens, if you want to call it that, comes out of there, and then the different laws begin to affect it, wherein the absolute, I'm going to say the word perfect. There are no laws to, well, there's only 3 laws that keep everything going. It doesn't need all these different laws. There's all these different laws that make things confusing for us on our planet. So it's coming down from the absolute, all very good, but then it gets affected by what it's going through, the cosmos, and starts degrading until it gets to us. So I'll start that again. An involutionary process begins consciously in the absolute, but at the next step, it already becomes mechanical. And it becomes more and more mechanical as it develops. An evolutionary process begins half consciously, but it becomes more and more conscious as it develops. And that's us working on it when it comes into us and we start working. Man's slavery grows and increases. The evolution of humanity can proceed only through the evolution of a certain group, which in its turn will influence and lead the rest of humanity. And I've said about this before, you know, if we could get 200 people, Gurdjieff said this, we can get 200 people to wake up and be conscious, they could lead humanity to a better way of living. Let's try and be one of them 200. Till next time, peace and out.